And now we're talking about Dracotail. This also is going to be a segue into some Burst Protocol stuff, because Burst Protocol, I think, is very important to evaluate Dracotail as a whole. And I guess we have to analyze it a little bit more now that we have the exact ban list hits. Dracotail as a whole, I think, or like if you're looking at Dracotail from the current TCG perspective before Burst Protocol, I think these Dracotail hits are pretty harsh, to be honest with you. I think in the context of Burst Protocol, they are justified, but I think if you just look at what Dracotail is at the moment, I think putting Ketu to 1 is pretty harsh for their grind game. It's really hard. And I've played a little bit of Dracotail post ban list yesterday already, just for some testing with my teammates, and running out of spell cards is a real problem. Like, this deck, even with the new Albaz support, is going to be still a relatively grindy deck. You're not really making insane auto win boards. You're making stronger boards with the new Albaz, but there's still like decks in the format that can outgrind. And one Ketu hurts. One Ketu hurts because here's the typical gameplay loop of Dracotail. Like, you're a lot of your games going first, unless you get hand trapped to death. You're going through Ketu, you're going through Rahu, you're summoning Arthalion, Gulamel, and you set all 3 trap cards, right? The Albaz support adds more to this board, but the fundamentals are still there, right? You're gonna have Sting, Horn, and Flame. And the entire idea of Dracotail is that the trap cards help you recycling your targets for your Dracotail effects, because all of your graveyard effects, in order to get their effects, you have to have a target in the deck that you can set. So with this new ratio of 1 Ketu, 3 Rahu, 3 traps, which is 7 spell traps total, you run through 1 Ketu, 1 Rahu, and 3 traps on the first turn, which means 5 Dracotail spell traps are out of rotation, and you only have 2 Rahus in the deck, basically. You have 2 Rahus in the deck, and that's it. Until you activate your traps to put back other things. So the way, in an ideal world, this works, right? You just activate a trap card, Flame, Horn, or Sting, and you put back Ketu Dracotail into your deck, so that you can set it up on your opponent's turn. When you fuse with Phimena or Mululu or Cartesia or whatever, you fuse on your opponent's turn, and then your graveyard effects can trigger, and you can put back like the Ketu and the Rahu onto your field, and that's your follow-up now, right? You have a Ketu and a Rahu for follow-up, and that's going to be your push on the next turn, and that's fine, right? The problem starts when your opponent starts dodging your cards or negating your Flame, Horn, or Sting. When your opponent has Ash or Bell or Droplet or MST or whatever else to dodge anything, or SP Little Knight, or they fuse away Urgula to pop your Flame with a Cartesia or something. There's a lot of ways. We all know it by now. Dracotail has been around. The Dracotail traps do not always resolve, right? And when one of your Dracotail traps gets dodged or negated, you run into problems now. You run into serious problems, because if let's say you start with Flame and your opponent ashes it because they want to resolve their spell card. So the Flame can no longer recycle your 1 copy of Ketu Dracotail, right? The Ketu Dracotail, your only copy of Ketu Dracotail, is now in the graveyard. Which means that when you activate Horn or Sting, you're going to have to make a very important decision. Do I put back the Ketu, or do I put back the Flame? Because if I put back the Ketu, then I have 2 traps in my graveyard, and then you can never get back multiple traps into rotation anymore. And so your follow-up is a lot weaker on your opponent's turn. Like, the interruptions you can put up on future turns are a lot weaker. Or do I put back my 1 copy of Ketu? Or do I put back the Flame and have the Ketu chill in the graveyard, so that I have 2 traps in rotation, but I don't have a Ketu anymore? Which is a hard decision to make. That is a very hard decision to make. It doesn't mean you lose the game, though. Like, games have been won with 1 Dracotail trap in rotation. games have been won with no Dracotail traps in rotation. That is not a death sentence for your game. It is just an angle at which you can operate when you're playing against Dracotail. A genuine win con can be running them out of spell traps now. And this is where Burst Protocol comes in, and this card comes in. Dracotail Shaurus, or Shaurus, I don't know. This card works like any other Dracotail fusion, one Dracotail monster and a monster in hand, and it has the same graveyard effect as Gulamel and Arthalion, which allows it to bring itself back when two monsters are sent to the grave at the same time. This card says you can target two Dracotail cards in your grave and a face-up card on the field with the same type as either of them, a monster, spell, or trap, and shuffle all three into the deck. So this card is recycling for Dracotail cards. Most of the time, however, you can only recycle one Dracotail spell trap with this, because you could recycle a spell and a trap, or two spells or two traps, if you have the ability to target a face-up spell or trap on the field. Majority of the time, you're targeting monsters with this on the field, because there's just not always a face-up spell or trap on the field that you can target. And since you have to target something with the same type as one of the cards you're trying to shuffle back, you're gonna recycle like one monster and one spell or trap most of the time. So it's not a lot of recycling. And then, like, the problem with all of this is that this card is not good. Like, it works, it does the job, but like, this is not a quick effect. Otherwise, it'd be pretty amazing if it was a quick effect, to be fair. It's not a quick effect, so it's very slow. You can't just do it any time. And when your opponent, and that's the even bigger thing, when your opponent is trying to outgrind you, they're gonna do everything to stop this. And because it's not a quick effect, it's very easy to stop. Like, if your opponent has removal, they're gonna just use it on this. If they notice, oh, my opponent is running low on spell traps, so they're summoning Shaurus, you're gonna try to stop that Shaurus with anything you have, and then, you know, you're the Dracotail player might be in trouble. On top of all this, because this card is not that great, and because Dracotail is getting some new tools that we're going to talk about in a second, this card doesn't even have room in every single Dracotail player's extra deck. There's a couple of extra decks in the OCG that doesn't even play this card. This first one here, this is literally the first list I found when I opened another tab and looked for a deck list for it. This list does not play it in the OCG right now, even though, and that's the cool thing here, the OCG actually has the exact same hits on Dracotail. They have one Mululu, one Ketu. It's the exact same. The only difference between the TCG and the OCG in regards to Dracotail is that we have two branded fusion and they have one. But for the most part, it's the exact same deck with the exact same ban list hits, which is pretty cool because we can compare between the two formats. Of course, not everything is the exact same in these two formats, but for the most part, the Dracotail decks are pretty similar, right? So this deck is still good. It still is strong because being able to outgrind it is still not easy, and it also doesn't mean that it's bad. You know, the end boards that this deck makes are still good. You know, even before Burst Protocol, like the Dracotail end board, even though it's not like broken, is still a good end board. You know, you have the 3 trap cards, you have Phimena in hand, you have Gulamel on the board. Like, it's a really solid Yu-Gi-Oh end board. You know, like it's strong. And this is the point where we have to talk about the new Albaz card, right? The new Albaz card and the Ecclesia. And of course, we've talked about this already in the first look at Burst Protocol. These two cards do a lot for this deck. Fallen of the White Dragon is a new main deck tool for Dracotail. And I mean, also branded, I guess. There's other decks that can also use it. If this card is in your hand, send a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz from your extra deck to the grave, special summon this card. Also, you can't special from the extra deck for the rest of this turn except level 8 fusion and synchros. This is already a phenomenal start because this means usually you start your plays by sending Albion from the extra deck to the graveyard, which gives you a free Fallen and the Virtuous, which is really cool. So That's amazing. It's a starter for the deck that doesn't take your normal summon, and it gives you a Fallen and the Virtuous in the end phase, which is also the reason why Fallen and the Virtuous is basically in every single Dracotail deck in the OCG now, because you start with the Fallen of White, and you get a free Fallen and the Virtuous in the end phase, which is really strong. If this card is normal or special summon an Ecclesia monster from hand, deck, or grave. So what you do is you play one Ecclesia, the Sword Soul Ecclesia, just because it is a tuner. So you summon it from the deck. Level 4 tuner allows you to make the new Ecclesia of the Black Dragon, which is a generic level 8 synchro. During the main phase, banish this card until the end phase, and if you do, special Fallen of Albaz or a level 4 or lower that mentions it from deck or grave. So what you do with this is you banish it until the end phase, and then you summon Cartesia. And Cartesia is a starter for Dracotail if you have Dracotail names in your hand, of course. That goes without saying that it's only a starter if you draw Dracotail cards, right? And with Mululu at 1, you have a little bit less of those. Personally, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm looking at this OCG deck list, and I think I've been playing a lot of pure Dracotail, and a lot of I've been playing 3 Cartesias in the TCG before Burst Protocol. I think it's insane that they're playing 11 Dracotail names. I think that's crazy. I think that the fact that there's no 3 Urgulas in here is crazy, and I think there should also probably be more pans. Like, this should probably be playing like 12, 13, 14 Dracotail names at the very minimum. Because Dracotail is already losing 4 starters, right? You're losing 2 Mululu, 2 Ketu. That is 4 Dracotail names less. And you cannot just replace them with the Fallen of White, because the Fallen of White is a good card, but it's not a starter if you don't have Dracotail names in your hand. Like, it doesn't do nothing, but it also doesn't do much if you don't have Dracotail names in your hand. So my personal prediction for Dracotail in the TCG is you're going to see a lot more names, you're going to see more Urgulas, you're going to see more pans, and you're going to see the new Albaz being played as well to increase the ceiling of the deck and to give them more starters that actually work if you play enough Dracotail names. So, yeah. The biggest question for me, honestly, is if you even play Branded Fusion and Albaz together. That's something that I haven't figured out for myself yet. It might seem obvious because it's like, oh, well, I have the Fallen of White in my deck. Of course, I'm going to play Branded Fusion, but I don't actually think it's that obvious. I think Branded Fusion is of course another starter. So yeah, you might play it, but it is pretty hard to fit everything in the extra deck with Branded Fusion and the Fallen of White. It's not easy, and it's also like, the Fallen of White is a little bit weaker when you resolve Branded Fusion, because the synchro is, you can't make the synchro when you want to go Branded Fusion. Like, it's actually, there's some counter synergy, some anti-synergy between these two, because the synchro is really good. The synchro is really good, and you really want to make it if you can. But yeah, you can still use the Albaz, but you're just not getting the synchro out of it. But the synchro is very nice. But yeah, so what this does for Dracotail, essentially, even with losing Mululu and Ketu, you have a stronger end board now if you draw the Albaz cards, or Branded Fusion, I guess. So it increases the ceiling of the deck a little bit, and getting Cartesia in rotation is also really nice for hand advantage. But if there's anything I found this deck struggling with, it's there's 2 things. There's 2 ways I think you can beat this deck. You can outgrind it by running it out of spell traps. I think that's possible, depending on the deck and the setup. But it's also, sometimes it just loses because it doesn't draw enough Dracotail names. Like, there's a lot of hands where, depending on your ratios, like I've been testing with 3 Urgula and 3 Pan, and I still found myself not having enough Dracotail names in hand all of the time. But yeah. How about Megistus Dracotail? I think Megistus Dracotail is straight up just worse than this. Like, I think fundamentally like Spenta and the Fallen of White are pretty similar cards in terms of what they do. Like, because it's a very fancy way of performing a fusion summon, basically, right? Like, it's like Megistus itself gets you some card advantage and then summons Crowley, which can perform a fusion summon, which is cool in Dracotail. And then Fallen of White is some fancy plays that gives you a Cartesia that performs a fusion summon. So they do very similar things. There is a world where you play both together instead of branded fusion, but that extra deck is extremely tight. That extra deck is extremely tight. I think at that point you might be losing games because your extra deck just doesn't have all the options you need. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. One Fuwalos. I think you'd be surprised, but like, I think Fuwalos. Realistically, I think for us in the TCG, we're still gonna play 3 Fuwalos in every deck, but it will get less important in the next format. I think against some decks. Like, I think branded Dracotail, like having Fuwa helps, but it's not required to win the game. Against Radiant Typhoon, Fuwa is actually not that good. And I think you're going to need Fuwa for the more like fancy combo decks like Magista stuff, K9 Crystron, whatever. Those decks you really want Fuwa against. But against like Dracotail and Radiant Typhoon, I think Fuwa is not that essential. Special Unicorn and this extra deck falls apart? I don't think that's the problem, no. I mean, they have Fallen into Virtues for Unicorn. That's the one thing, but yeah. This card, by the way, Fallen into Virtue is crazy. Like, it's such a good card with the new Albaz. Like this package, of course, the main focus right now is on Dracotail, because that's what's like obviously the best deck, but Fallen into Virtuous and Fallen of White, like that package is so potent. I can see so many decks that could potentially play these cards. It does not have to be just Dracotail. Like the grind game you get from Fallen of White, Send Albion is so good. It is such a good package. And this is also something I underestimated about this Ecclesia Synchro in the beginning. The graveyard effect of this card is so powerful. If this card is in your grave, you can target a level 8 fusion monster in your grave or banishment and one card on the field, shuffle both and this card into the deck. This card is so good in the graveyard. And you can send it for Fallen into Virtuous. Bestial Branded Control. I don't know. The new Albaz has really poor synergy with Bestial, unfortunately, because it locks you specifically into level 8 fusion and synchros. It's a level 4, like you get a level 4 tuner and then you can't make like a level 10, you can't make this pattern or anything like that. So it's tough with this one. I think that's gonna be hard to work around this. Honestly, I want to hear your opinion on something, because one of the biggest questions in my mind is whether you play, because this card is always treated as Fallen of Albaz. This even counts in deck building. You cannot play 3 of this card and then 1 OG Fallen of Albaz. I was wondering whether you think people should play 3 white or 2 white, 1 OG. I think that is a big question in the upcoming format. A really, really big question. So essentially, we're asking the age-old question, do you want more ceiling or do you want more consistency? Are you willing to play the brick to get a stronger end board, or are you not willing to do that? You want to play more starters instead? And what I mean by this is, of course, having the OG Fallen of Albaz in this deck gives you interruptions on the opponent's turn because of its effect. You can summon it in a couple of ways, right? You can summon it. The main way you can summon it is by using the Ecclesia of the Black Dragon, because during the main phase quick effect, banish this card until the end phase, special Fallen of Albaz or a level 4 or lower that mentions it from deck or grave. So this card, you use it on your first turn to get Cartesia. It banishes itself until the end phase. It comes back in the end phase on the opponent's turn. If you have Albaz in your deck, that's a disruption, right? So summon Albaz from deck when your opponent summons something from the extra deck. Make Mirror Jade. That's crazy. That's a really good disruption on the opponent's turn with Ecclesia of the Black Dragon. It also makes the new Albaz a lot stronger into Fuwalos if you play OG Albaz, right? Because what you do is you special this from your hand, By sending Albion, you activate the effect to summon Ecclesia. Your opponent activates Fuwa. You summon the Ecclesia. Your opponent draws 1. And what you can do at this point, genuinely, is you can just pass. In the end phase, you get Fallen and the Virtuous, which is a pop. And then the main deck Ecclesia can also tag out into Fallen of Albaz, right? So for just 1 Fuwa draw from the Fallen and the Virtue, from the Fallen of White, you get Albaz on the opponent's turn and the Fallen and the Virtuous pop, which also creates follow-up, right? So pretty respectable into Fuwa. And that's basically the reason to play Fallen of Albaz. It makes your full board stronger, and it makes your half board more potent under Fuwa. Those are 2 draws? No. You summon Fallen of White from your hand and an Ecclesia from the deck, and then you're done. It's 1 draw. The main deck Ecclesia summons Albaz on your opponent's turn as well. You can just pass with the white and the Ecclesia main deck monster on the board. With only 1 Mululu, I think 3 white Albaz is mandatory. That's the thing, right? Like, the Fallen of White is just such a good starter if you have enough Dracotail names in your deck. I can see an argument for both, honestly. Like, that's the hardest part about it. Is like, I see both sides of the argument. I would say the following thing: if it just made your full power end board stronger, then I wouldn't play it. Like, if all you're playing it for is to like make your full board even more, like win more, I guess, then I wouldn't do it. But the argument that it makes your deck stronger, like your half boards into Fuwa, or when you get ashed on Rahu or something like that, right? Like, the making those boards better, I think, is worth something. I think that's worth something. You can play 2 of the new Albaz and 3 Seyfert. Well, say you have a lot of normal summons at this point, right? Like, also, why? Nah, you can just play more Ecclesias if you want that. That's better, I think. Consistency will make people play 3 white. I think realistically, and that's the cool thing about this, is that I don't think there is an objectively correct way to do this. I think it's important to understand the pros and cons of both ways. And I think that's also something that's teaching you to be a better deck builder and understanding decisions and stuff like that. Is understanding that both of these things have things going for it, have reasons, have like there's good reasons to do one of the 2 things, and that's something you can make a decision for and then learn from it, I suppose. Can I ask why 2 Cartesia? Okay, so there is 2 reasons or multiple reasons to play 2 Cartesias, I guess. Cartesia is not a bad draw in this deck, honestly. It's just another way to start things off. When you have a couple of Dracotails in your hand, you can just normal Cartesia and play. Cartesia does get better with the new support because it has an effect to special summon itself if you have Albaz. So more often than not now, or not more often than not, but often enough, you can just special it from your hand if you resolve Branded Fusion or you draw the Albaz. So you can, it's like a free extender basically. The other thing, I guess, is, and that's this thing can summon a level 4 or lower monster that mentions Albaz from deck or grave. It cannot summon from hand. So if you have a Cartesia in your hand with the Fallen of White, you cannot resolve, you cannot summon it off of Ecclesia of the Black Dragon, which can make some hands a little bit weird. And it's also the same thing, like sometimes in this deck, on the opponent's turn, you don't want to summon Fallen of Albaz with this, you want to summon Cartesia. So on the opponent's turn, if you have Cartesia in your hand because you add it back from the graveyard in the end phase, you cannot summon it with Ecclesia of the Black Dragon. Which often leads to, if you only play 1 Cartesia, I've tested this a little bit. Sometimes when you play 1 Cartesia, it's correct to leave it in the grave in the end phase. So that you can still summon it with Ecclesia of the Black Dragon. But of course, that's not ideal. You would rather summon it from your deck, of course, and add the one from your grave to your hand for free card advantage. So yeah, That's why I think 2 is a pretty sweet spot. The main deck Ecclesia is broken. Main deck Ecclesia is okay. It's just going second, it's pretty good, but going first, it's just another normal summon, which is why 1 is perfect, I think. Mourner instead of Veiler. This I think is not... This is the one thing, the biggest difference between TCG and OCG is the ruling on Mourner. This is why I think Mourner is going to be less popular for us in the TCG. Because Mourner... Basically, the way Mourner works, how do I explain this? If you've played in Master Duel, you might notice the same thing, because Master Duel is using OCG rulings. And triggers, like Mourner, work differently in the OCG and Master Duel. They are basically treated like quick effects. Which means, basically what I'm trying to get to is, if your opponent summons Arthalion on your turn using 5 mana, in the OCG, they use Arthalion first, and then you can chain Mourner to it. Which makes Mourner just a little bit more flexible. But in the TCG, you can't do that, because in the TCG, the way trigger rulings work, because your turn player, when they summon Arthalion on your turn, you have to use Mourner first, and then Arthalion is a higher chain link, right? So the Arthalion would resolve before you can negate it. So Mourner is a lot worse in the TCG. There is still some reasons to play Mourner in the upcoming format, and that's a deck we're talking about in a second. That's Radiant Typhoon. Radiant Typhoon is a relevant deck for the upcoming format. Believe it or not, I actually think Radiant Typhoon benefits from this ban list. Even though they banned Featherstorm, I think Radiant Typhoon is a very capable deck in the upcoming format. I think it's pretty strong. We're gonna talk about that in a second. Against Radiant Typhoon, Mourner is pretty good. And the reason why Mourner is good against Radiant Typhoon over Veiler is because they often do stuff in the draw phase. Because they have things that trigger after a quick play spell is activated. So one very common way to play Radiant Typhoon is to activate a bunch of your stuff in draw phase to also respect Roland Lockbird better. So things like Radiant Typhoon Crocea, if your opponent triggers it in the draw phase to summon and search, you cannot Veiler that, right? Dragon that devours the Dogma may also help recycling the Ketu. Yeah, but it's not that easy to summon. Usually it's a send for Fallen into Virtues, right? I think the main reason why you play Albion and Dogma and not just multiple Albions, by the way, is I think you can do a cool play going second, where if you have Albaz, instead of sending Albion, you send the Dragon that devours the Dogma first. And then in the end phase, the Dragon that devours the Dogma searches the Fallen and the Virtuous. Then you can activate that Fallen of the Virtuous to send Albion to pop a card. And then Albion sets the second copy of Fallen and the Virtuous from your deck, which is cool. What about Dragon's Mind for going first in Dracotail? I've seen a lot of people play that card recently in TCG Dracotail lists, or like rather testing for Burst Protocol already. It seems like a very popular choice. I guess we'll have to wait and see if it's needed to side deck more stuff for going first. I mean, if you're main decking 3 Fubas, I guess you need something to side in when you go first, so I could see it.